Can Jack get out? He does have a right click. Oh, the snipe! I thought you were going to try to escape, but he finds a kill. Jack in the corner, holding the angles, moving forward. Was he right about the
I'm
sandbag?
fact about Jack. Yeah, he can't die, by the way.
He's got a slow too. The fight is being turned around. No way you get this. No way you get this. He got
nice,
one.
Let's go. We're gaming. We're gaming.
One more snipe
Hit him with the
coming
anti-flank.
out.
There it is. The Pizza Hut play of the game, boys.
Hello YouTube, welcome to today's video. It's going to be a little bit different. I had the chance to sit down with a few devs that are working on a new MOBA called Sirocco, also known as Boat MOBA, and honestly I'm trying to get it changed to the boat game, but I don't know if anyone's going to do that. That's besides the point. We are basically showcasing where this development team has come from in the last 4 or 5 years. They started this project back in 2020, and we are now in early access with the game. And as a content creator, I've just been keeping an eye on it because I love MOBAs, and it's been years since we've had a new MOBA. And the interview wound up being really awesome. I got to know a couple of guys that just are passionate about their project and passionate about gaming in general. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. There is minimal editing because I thought they had a lot of interesting things to say, and they have some cool stuff to show off about the game. So enjoy, and thanks for watching. There might be like some hard questions today, or maybe we go down like weird angles or whatever. Just know that I know it's hard to make video games, and I appreciate the heck what you guys are doing. And I know I say toxic shit all the time, so just know that it all comes from a place of I understand that life is hard for you guys. You're constantly in a state of stress. You're building something from nothing. It's cool, and I congratulate you on it.
Yeah, it's all worth it though.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, just seeing the response with all kind of the stuff we have going on, it's been great that people are really appreciating it.
I think you guys are dipping your toes into a really good time for MOBAs in general, League, Dota, or just in a situation where people are wanting something new. They've been around for so long, and there's nothing new on the market, and then you have something really unique, and then I think people are finding out they freaking love boats, right? So that's always fun too. Just you're in a really good spot right now. So
that's what we were thinking.
Heck yeah,
man.
What's up, wonderful?
League and Dota are old.
They are, dude. Even one of my beloveds, HOTS, is old. It was out in 2014. It's been 11 years.
Yeah, it's wild.
Crazy to me.
But also, yeah, I mean, the thing about game dev is it's so amazing when you get to this point.
Yeah.
And you work so hard to make a game, and then people can actually play it. Obviously the negativity is difficult, but it's just fucking awesome. Being able to play games and pop into matches and see what people are doing and watch people get really good and people try for the first time.
And it seems like you guys are kind of doing multiple hats as well, right? You're doing community management, you're running a Discord, you're the CEO.
Yeah, we do so much. I know. But it's also, I mean, that part's kind of great too. Honestly, I feel like so much of what game dev is gonna need to become, because things are just so crazy and competitive, is more almost probably streaming in a certain way where you have to be close to the people that care.
Papa said, "Hi, my name is Trick. I don't recognize main character."
And game dev generally too, I think.
Papa said, "Hi, my name is Trick. I don't recognize main characters because I'm the only main character I care about."
And it's hard, but at the same time, I think it's also really good because you kind of see the full vertical of your game, and you kind of understand every layer of what is this actually like.
While you're talking about game dev, I guess we can kind of just start the show, if you will, a little bit. When did you guys even start just getting on top of Sirocco and be like, you know what, we're gonna create this game for the modern day and age? I know some of you worked on the original back in Warcraft 3 days. How do we get here?
Yeah, so there's there's so many different beginnings of the story.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, Warcraft 3 had all these custom maps, and Battleships was one of the early ones following Dota. And we just played that as kids, that was kind of not something that we were a part of originally. And then it kind of split off into a bunch of different Battleships mods. One of them was Battleships Pro, which was the most popular one.
Okay.
And then Battleships Crossfire, which was kind of a European variant originally by Say No to War. And I was always really I'm partial to Crossfire, but there's a lot of battle tanks. So battle tanks was another one that came out of the kind of battle tanks was after Battleships, right? Wonderful, I think it was. So I think Crossfire is great. I mean, when people talk about weapon combining and stuff like that, they're talking about Crossfire. Crossfire was kind of the one that implemented a lot of the kind of innovations of Dota into the battleships type milieu of MOBA.
Yeah.
But Battleships Pro actually I think is probably one of the ones that people played the most from that, Dota 1 era. Because CrossFire actually came out like in 2010. Anyways, history aside, me and Eric, when we were kids, worked on like our own little variant. It wasn't as popular, but I became much more part of the Battleships Crossfire community. And then throughout the teens, essentially as all of the big studios were coming out MOBAs, whether it was like Blizzard or any of the other variants, even League of Legends, we're always like, man, why is no one working on this Battleships game? Because we're always thinking like these mechanics are super interesting. I'm sure some big studios doing it, and then they just never did. And we're like, shit. And lo and behold, it was a pandemic, and my brother had been working in like gaming and the content side of things, and me and Eric were all kind of still working on like maps and stuff like that, the UGC side, but we hadn't actually like made a full game. But we're like, what would happen if we just tried it? Like, what if we just looked at the possibility of making a prototype? It was just kind of one step led to another, and we ended up making a bit of a prototype, getting some funding for it. 2020, 2021 was a really good era to get funding for a game, so we got pretty lucky. And I think that the fact that we had like a mod we can point to really helped that. And then lo and behold, 4 years later, that was 2021, we like first sat down and thought about doing it. And then really full production was more like 3 years ago. And now we're here, and it's been a wild journey. We've had to teach ourselves a lot, but I think the most amazing thing, and something I tell people a lot who's coming from just gaming and modding generally, is that it's actually really powerful, right? You get a lot as a designer in those communities, because you understanding the kind of core mechanics of your games actually helps you build the technology for your game.
Yeah, did you guys
effectively
build an authentic engine yourself, or did you grab an engine from someone else? Like, where'd you even get to the point where you're able to have a game running?
Yeah, so we're building in Unity, and that's been a journey within itself. It was learning the engine. Eric is amazing because he literally taught himself everything from scratch in the Unity, and then basically got programmers just to make the tools for him. I don't know, Eric, if you want to talk about that process.
Yeah, Eric, tell us about that. That's like a perfect segue.
Yeah, I think what's really funny is I've used a lot of Mac makers in my time.
Yeah.
And what's funny is Warcraft 3's world editor is by far the most like designer friendly like engine type thing I've ever used. What's interesting is these large scale engines like Unity and Unreal, they're really not meant for designers. They're kind of meant for programmers and artists, and it kind of optimizes for the people who are like just making the assets or making the code.
Sure.
Versus the people who have to like decide like, what does this actually do? How does these numbers interact? How does the system works? Where like to make a game, you really have to get all the fundamentals in, and then you can focus on like actually iterating on the design and all that stuff. So what's kind of wild about our system is I kind of knew all of the mechanics from day one, but it took like 3 years to actually have them starting to work the way that I wanted them to, and then that's when the iteration process started on the actual game itself.
So you started in 2021, 2020?
Yeah. 2021 is when we started.
How many times did you almost quit? Like almost full like table flip and just I'm out on this.
I don't think I ever got to a table flipping state. I was always angry about like some things, but I guess my personality is not like that, where I'll come across something and then I just, instead of
figuring it out,
I just want to figure it out, because the end goal is what's most important to me, and not like the in-between stuff is just how you get there and how you work through it.
In a way, that's like the most MOBA like mentality I've ever heard in my life. You're constantly angry, but you're gonna figure it out, man.
This is why he's immortal.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm in Herald.
I think a lot of that actually. So I did play a lot of Dota. I did do a lot of like Warcraft 3 editor stuff when I was young. That's what got me really into games. But I think the perseverance and like moving through stuff is I spent a lot of time like leading really stressful like wilderness trips up in like the deep north of Canada for like months. That was like my job.
It's like cold up
during
there,
college.
Dude.
Yeah, well, not during the summer, but what's kind of interesting is it's the same kind of mentality of like, once you run across something, you can't just say no. You have to actually figure out a solution to move through it. You can't just like give up.
Gotcha.
Except when you get code that doesn't function, and that's why you need MIT.
From what I understand, like, that's kind of the case with a lot of like technical design. Is code always like struggling and having to be fixed and patched, and it becomes this like own like mod of what it originally was, and things like that.
Always broken. It's always broken. You just have to iterate on it. It's wild. That was one thing I did not expect. Like how much you just need to be fixing everything when you're building new things.
Yeah, you get a new hero or a new boat you want to put in, you're like, oh wait, I gotta fix the code for this. So like, that's a good segue for Mitt here. Mitt, what do you do, man? Nice to meet you, by the way. And
yeah, nice to meet you too.
Let's hear about this coding adventure. You got any anecdotes for us?
Well, not really, but I can't say that I was doing much in terms of code. But as far as I'm as Jack was saying, I do QA. I'm part of the QA team, and if you see any bugs, it's probably my fault, but hopefully your experience has been relatively smooth on the front end. I'm also responsible for some of the ships being a little nerfed sometimes, but not often. But yeah, I'm really just kind of like, checking after everybody and making sure stuff works the way it should.
I mean, honestly, it runs really smooth. You've done a good job. I haven't ran into like any major issues in terms of like bugs that are like annoying. Most of my like statements or anything have been about like ranked or chat or things like that. In terms of the game running well, you guys are in a solid state. You've done a wonderful job, in my opinion.
Yeah, thanks. I also made the video you're watching.
This, but can I steal this for YouTube? I'm not gonna get sued, right? Like,
calling my lawyer right now.
I find I'll think about it. Okay, fair enough. I find it actually really fascinating to watch. I'm kind of getting zoned in and just listening to you in the background, like it's like perfect. All right, so we got Mitt, we got Jack, we met Mr. Wonderful. Mr. Wonderful, you told us about breakfast, but what's your job on the team, and what do you bring forward, and what do you like working on Sirocco?
I am Jack's friend.
Okay.
I was from the Battleships community. So I'm basically just professional gamer.
So you're the guy that comes in and after a bad day and you bring the beer and make everyone feel better, or water, or the avocados, whatever you need for the day. Get everyone excited.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful's the one who tells me that all of our ships suck and that we need to make our game better. So
only when you nerf the fun ships and you're just like, oh, the Revenant's one-shotting everything with its mines. Nerf it. I'm like, no, please.
So you're the one here to carry, teach us. That's what I'm hearing. If we don't learn today, we blame you. Speaking of, I guess while we're talking about this, when you guys are like designing the game, building your engine and whatnot, are you guys thinking about balance and trying to balance as you go, or is this more of like, hey, we'll solve this with early access as we go through it? Like, how far along would you guys say to being 100% ready for release, if you were to give it a number? You don't have to commit to anything, by the way, because is this something that, back in my PR training, you probably never want to actually have video proof for, but I'm going to go out there and ask, and you can totally tell me to shut up. That's fine.
I feel, so on balance-wise, I think we're like 50% of the way there.
Okay.
Quality of life, I think we need a lot more, so like 30%, and then there's probably a lot more polish. On like the fundamental architecture and tech of the game, I think we're pretty much there. There's some other features we want to add, but everything now is more like additional versus, complete rewrites of systems.
Gotcha.
Which is basically, if you think of 3 layers, where on the bottom you have your like back-end infrastructure AWS stack. Then you have like your back-end code, which is like runs account services, connects people, moves people around, party service, like all this stuff you can imagine that's like not to do with the exact game you're playing. And then above that is like your engine, your front end code, like all the pieces that you work around. And then on top of that is your actual game design. It's really hard to do anything before the layer below it is stable. I guess a cake is a bad example. It's more like,
a great way to put it.
They're all skateboards, and they're all stacked on top of each other, and they're always moving back and forth. And so you have to lock them in place before you can move on to the next one.
God, it sounds like a circus act, man. Jeez.
It really is. And if you find an issue with something on the bottom, it has to make its way all the way up through everything else.
Also, one thing too that's really was fascinating about the process is how much I think we've had to push ourselves in a certain way to not worry too much about balance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And be bold. Like, because there's times you're like, fuck, like I don't like loom coils, captains. I don't know if we could balance that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm really glad that we kind of like plunged into the water and like figured it out because, you know, the one benefit, and captains are a really good example of this, like of just the core battleships architecture of like a strategy game is the fact that you both have access to the same tools, you know?
Yeah.
And once you have some layers that are, you know, more asymmetrical, then suddenly you start having to deal with more of that classic asymmetrical design that you get in things like RTS and
That's actually
other, you know, MOBAs.
That's something that you're kind of I was going to touch about later on when we were playing and whatnot. But I guess I can ask you now is what is the rhythm of the game intended for you guys? Because I've played it and we'll show people when we jump into a game later on. But you can switch between different boats. And are you trying to go for, hey, people master 1 or 2 boats, they hop on and they play? Are you trying to do like a hero shooter where you should be constantly switching, trying to counter? Like, what are you guys trying to nail in the mobile market? Because it is unique in that regard.
Yeah, I think we always, at least personally, so one thing that is different from our game from the original Battleships is in the original Battleships, there's much more of a push to, you know, get a new ship, right?
Yeah.
And so in normal Battleships, you start out as like a sailor, which is kind of similar to the Sampan, a little more Warcraft 3. And then you can get different tiers of ships. And the reason why it's really important to get tiers of ships beyond just getting different abilities is the fact that they come with a lot of different health. So they have like base stats that you get.
I see. Okay.
And then for us, we're kind of thinking like, well, one of the design problems you run into in battleships is that you kind of have to make the same ships over and over again if you like the certain ships. So like in Crossfire, for instance, you have like the International Brigade, which is like the hook ship. It's like the lurker for us, right? But then they would also have to make the strike ship, which is like the 14 gay version. And that's because in the late game, you need to have something that has more health, but then everyone still wants a hook, you know? So
yeah,
we kind of looked at it we tried to approach a lot of our design choices from first principles, and this kind of gets at where some players that are coming from the OG game can feel a little bit like, well, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
And disappointed is because, you know, we really wanted to approach it and be like, okay, well, how do we solve some of these core design problems that you still have in battleships? And, you know, I think our system, the ideal player for us is one who is capable of being creative, but can also be like a master at their one thing, right? Like,
yeah,
I think it's really cool if you're like a quote unquote lurker main and you can get the best hooks on your team, you know? But at the same time, I think it's really amazing if you're more of a player who can adapt in real time. So it's hard to say if our game is optimized or indexing to one of those players or not at this point, because I don't think we've really seen a competitive scene.
Yeah.
But I think ideally we would have both, you know?
That's awesome. I actually love that answer because I was wondering, I was like, maybe I learn 1 or 2 boats, but I'm like, am I shooting myself in the foot? Should I learn everything? And eventually, I think that natural drive we were talking about earlier about how you want to be the best at a game whenever you're playing them, that's kind of the thing that like attracts MOBA players. We'll learn all the boats eventually and learn how to adjust, and it's cool that the game seems like it's going to be able to unfold that way. The longer people keep playing, or if we ever do move into a competitive environment, esports, tournaments, things like that. But man, I just want to say thank you guys for showing up and coming in. Do you want to try and get a game going, and we'll hop in and talk more about some stuff? And I have a lot of questions in game itself, actually, because I have had my own personal struggles, and so I would love to just learn from you guys, if possible.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so the shop is something that I think is probably the biggest amount of like cognitive load for players.
Yeah, but that's the case for all MOBAs, so just anything as a tip just to get people started, I think goes a long way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the key and the biggest way you have to think about our game versus others is that there's basically 2 different upgrade tier like paths essentially.
Okay.
And the first one is ships, and the second one is weapons. So unlike other MOBAs where you have a right click associated with the hero, in Battleships and Sirocco, you have weapons that are basically your auto firing, and it's separated from your hero, or in our case, our ships.
Mm-hmm.
So I can upgrade my auto firing separately in my weapons, or I can upgrade my ships, and they're going to give me like my player stats essentially. So I'm going to start the game when we get 2 different pairs.
In there. So you'll be heading into the middle of the map where we have what's called the extractor, and usually this is like the first major fight of the game from what I've been seeing in most of my matches, right?
Yeah, it's been a mosh pit recently.
Yeah.
And it's looking pretty good for us right now.
So for those that are watching right now, the extractor's at the very top here at the UI. These are able to grab resources called Oko. Correct, guys? Oko, that's what it's
Nice.
called.
Okay, that's what
got
we
it.
got.
And Oko, if this extractor is able to get back to your base, will be paid off for you, and you will be able to get extra cash later on. And you're essentially in a tug of war with your opponent. So taking away their extractor and getting you set up for yours puts you guys in a great spot earlier. You can get 500 currency, which is that Oko, and be able to turn that into a talent or an upgrade quicker than your opponent. So it's a pretty important fight to have to start. And it looks like we have an actual kill on the top right. Nice!
Yeah, we got a first blood, which is always good. And I think the most important thing to know in the beginning when you're dealing with the harvesters or extractors are the you can kind of just go for a trade, kind of like a pawn for a pawn in chess if you think about it that way.
Sure.
Or you can try and defend yours, kill your opponents, or vice versa. So we got ours back. I don't think we killed theirs, but that's like a fine trade. And getting the first blood's big.
We got some kills too.
Yeah, a couple of kills coming in. And you guys are actually in the lead right now in terms of that tug of war. So, like, how important is it right now to win this fight at the top of the board right now with that blue line?
Yeah, so the first team to get to a certain amount of Oko, we've kind of adjusted the cap. I'm not sure what it is this patch, but
Sure.
the first team to get that is going to trigger a payout. And the payouts for both sides, and essentially all the money that your team has gathered will be then distributed to your entire team.
Gotcha.
And what you also get in addition to that is a siege minion, and you get siege minions for both sides, and they're pretty tough. So it's good. I'm gonna try and bait a little bit, maybe.
I don't have anything. You're gonna die.
No, I'm good. I got repair.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice.
I should have deflected, but I'm not that good.
Gotta be a gamer.
Gamer.
Yeah, put your gaming pants on.
Exactly. That's what I'm gonna do.
So, in terms of, I guess, I think a lot of people in MOBAs, there's multiple games, obviously, that are out there, and there's a lot of differences between lane phase, you know, some games have team experience, some games are about objective control. What are you guys trying to hit for your game in terms of lane versus team fighting? What's the balance looking like for you guys?
Oof, that was a nice deflect. It's interesting.
It's a tricky question. I think we want to lean on the controlling aspect, where
Of the
you're
map?
controlling the lanes.
Okay.
Just because of the minions playing back and forth. I think that's
Sure.
probably a 60% kind of focus. But then the rotations with pulling people off from the harvesters is really important to then like disrupt that control. I think in a lot of games, people can kind of get stuck in kind of just like a lane controlling thing where you just go back and
Exactly.
forth for a couple of minutes. And I think that is, kind of leads to stale meta. And so if there's always opportunities to rotate and to then get awarded for that rotation, I think that leads to more
Nice.
interesting gameplay and more interesting decisions.
Yeah. Do you think right now the current extractor in the middle of the map is pulling people away from the lanes, or do you think like people are still learning and it's not even like a major focus right now? Because like right
I
now,
think-
what I'm seeing you three doing right now is you're constantly in the extractor. And in my own games, I feel like this is like I'm pinging like crazy. No one's responding right now. And is it because you guys maybe have a little bit more game knowledge and it'll get better over time? Like, what are you thinking about that kind of stuff?
It will definitely get better over time, especially as we increase like information about how the game works and
Sure.
functions. Like right now, it kind of just throws you in there, and you just have to just figure it out,
Yeah.
which is pretty rough. But I think as people understand the intricacies of the mechanics, it will kind of start to highlight itself.
Yeah.
But of course, there's endless tuning as well.
It is interesting though. Vic Frank, who's like a really good player, just says ignore the harvester, go for the towers. So, I mean, there are strategies
Well,
that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
I've
I like
noticed
that
that it's basically in my first few games that I've started when it first came out this last weekend. People didn't know what to do and they wouldn't go mid, and then you like ping it, and then like slowly people started to learn to where like, oh, let's like go to the mid. There's a big
Yeah.
brawl there, and so then they start they're like
Ooh,
catching
nice
on.
shot.
They're like, oh,
Thank you.
brawl.
That actually brings
I've
up
just
a
noticed-
really interesting question, and MOBAs in general, because we know some MOBAs have been out for decades, right? And there is still always a discussion of, do people have the minimap? Do they buy the DLC? Things like that. Is there
Yeah.
anything you guys are looking to try and make that stuff easier to pop? Like maybe ping showing up on the extractors for people? things like that, or is like, hey man, that's the state of MOBA. It's like if people aren't gonna do it, they're not gonna do it, you know?
We definitely want to make it more clear that's happening. Like Eric said, if anything we need to be improving, it's going to be clarity, UI, you know, pings for players, explaining how things function.
Sure.
It's always a battle for sure. Yeah, so it's I think the key with something like the Harvester is that you need it to be a objective that's somewhat time-based and happening for both teams, so that you have a way to get an advantage that's not just in lane, right?
Sure.
If you just have the lanes, the game will feel more stale because, like Eric was mentioning, you're kind of focused on that one area. And in feedback, you know, you're always going to hear things like, "Oh, I don't understand why the map is so big. What is there to do? I want more things to do in the map." So I think that's the good thing about the Harvesters, and they kind of they're inspired by the traders from battleships, which I think is like a really cool part of it. Like, we always were kind of disappointed in jungles in Dota and League because it just realistically, because it's always static, there's not as much dynamic team fighting. Where I think the cool thing about how they work in our game is that you kind of get these emergent team fights because it's always moving, you know?
Yeah, it's very kinetic based, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, actually leads into another question from one of your Discords. People were asking about, one, I think the map might be a little stale right now, mostly because it's new. It's just like a blank canvas, and we're focusing on the boats. Are there any possible maps coming in the future? Will there be a revamp of the one you currently have?
Nice.
Or is that like really fun? Oh, the trade!
Ooh.
Hang on, we'll see. Like,
That's a lot of burst damage.
Not quite.
Yeah, I can't go. I'm dead here too.
I mean, we would love to do more maps. I mean, Eric, I think you mentioned that before, right?
Yeah, I would love to have a rotation of different maps. Even what I would think would help too is right now all of our the map all looks the same because it's all kind of the same assets too.
Yeah.
So like both more map layouts, but also like more visual layouts to help people navigate and understand where they are in the reference of the map. I think will go a really long way, moving things up.
Ooh, nice
But,
movement,
I mean,
Jack. Oh my gosh. But he's actually styling right now.
I think the big things around map is the map and the map layout can really help with the meta, or
totally
like
true.
the kind of like how like kind of competitive play happens at like at a more like intricate level.
Yeah.
Like right now, you know, we could more or less we could more or less just have a very static like square maps up and down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it would kind of be similar. It wouldn't have the other places like hide and peak and stuff.
I mean, that's why StarCraft Brood War's been around for so long, because of map evolution, right? It helps with balance. You can change things up. If a certain map is laying around, you can start to really get into that. And also, I guess that leads into a question I didn't even think about, but it just came up with my brain. Whatever, man. It's no big deal. I guess my question would be, and you don't have to answer or commit to this as if you don't want to, but do you think there could be a world where you do allow people to make their own custom maps and maybe even like take community-inspired maps in the future to let people kind of do that stuff? Or is that like so far down? Hell yeah, cool.
Hell yeah, bro.
That is one thing that
I would
like
say
has kind of disappeared from MOBAs in general, is like some custom maps or being able to let the community, you know, have a say in what they want to play on can go a long way.
I would love that. I think to make it actually happen and work is an undertaking. I have no idea how hard it would be.
Yeah.
But that is like the end goal, is to try to make as many tools to allow people to make their own stuff.
Cool. And again, anyone listening to this, like, that's probably way down the road. Like, don't like force anyone or like bring this up in 2 months. I mean, but that's
I mean,
tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow.
The mega long-term goal of our company is to make a map editor similar to some of the stuff that was, you know, available in the past to make games.
Yeah, like no doubt, our vision is to make another map editor.
That's
like,
awesome.
I think personally, game industry needs to go back to what was figured out back then, where you have just so much design and innovation because players, gamers really, are able to iterate and make their own games. So
yeah, because they're stewing in your game, right? And they're gonna have ideas, and even if they don't execute them, they want to be able to mess around and fall more in love with your product.
Yeah, and I think it's even bigger than that. Like I think some of the best games come out of other games, right? Mods.
Sure.
And
yeah.
having that ability is just like I want the next great MOBA to be made in our editor if we ever get around to doing it. So
that'd be so sick.
That is such an awesome quote. Awesome. I said, but I know we're talking on a big subject right now. We can revisit it, but I actually just saw you spend $4,500, and this is just like more of like trying to understand what you're going through as a player because I'm trying to get my own game better. Do you guys think like sitting on your money and getting farm in lane is a better strategy, or is this more because we're hanging out and kind of just conversing a little bit that you save so much money up? Like, what is the end goal for buying your boat upgrades?
So it's a trade of experience, I think, when you go back to base, right? And that's part of the design. People kind of hate that we don't have recall. The one advantage that we have, the reason why we've kind of been resistant to having recall, is that it makes it more difficult or more of a decision, I would say, to stay in lane. And so you kind of have to choose if you want to have the most experience on your team or in the game. You'll have to stay out on the map longer. And so even though, I wasn't as powerful as other people around me, I was the highest level. And because I'm doing a build that's very much based on ability damage, it's actually not punishing me that much to have less stats.
Gotcha.
I would say generally, though, it's not the best idea to stay out with a lot of money. It's usually better to go back.
And just to make sure I'm understanding this, you're saying the damage on your abilities levels up with your leveling up in experience, right? So that's kind of offset that.
So this is a little bit more under the hood, but essentially my E is going to level up every, what is it, 5 levels, Eric? And so I'm getting more damage by leveling up. So my build is going to be benefiting more from levels than if I was doing something that's more based off of like being tanky, like a Stingray build or something,
Okay, awesome. Good to know. And that's actually something that I was hoping for a little bit more of is like I need like kind of a lab area to work on my boats, to figure out scaling, to figure out my builds and whatnot. Is that something that could be coming relatively soon? Hopefully, yes, because I would love to be able to tinker and figure out how I want to take a build in, because it's kind of hard to do it in a live environment, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Have you tried using the practice mode? I know it's
the practice mode,
really...
yeah, but does it have like level? Well, I played it in the demo, and I don't remember there being like, here you can level up 5 levels right now and look at your stats and all that kind of stuff. Is what I'm trying to do. Like, I want to be able to walk in and be like, here's level 20, here's my firepower. Okay, this is I'm trying to scale up, so I know to like farm to 20 in a match, and then I'm strong. Things like that.
Oh, that was bad.
Jack is.
We should maybe. I'm just going hard.
That has been on the backlog just for a long time. Just because of getting the game up and playing, but like having tools to actually like adjust stats and all that stuff, I think would be really cool. Especially if you could do it like for custom games as well, where you could change the modifiers. We have stuff. Cool. Yeah, we have stuff like that built out.
Ooh, that was
already for like internal dev testing, but then making it something that's player front facing will just take a bit of polish and touch
and time. I mean, not to you don't have, how many people do you have working on this game, by the way? You're a small dev team, right?
Yeah.
It's
about right now it's 10, but it's not a lot of engineers.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's just more like 10 people working on a game is engineers. You gotta take your time, like this stuff is hard, especially when you have to sadly this sad fact is that you're gonna be compared to other MOBAs no matter what you do. I know that like you're a small dev team, new game or whatnot, and I automatically, like, something doesn't go my way, I go, oh, it's not the same as League or not the same as Haas or the same as Pokemon Unite, right? So just trying to put that out there is like, small dev team, people are working on it, you're working hard, it's very much appreciated, and we all, including myself, need to remind ourselves that, hey, stuff will be coming, but it might take a little bit of time, and that's okay. Speaking of, Jesus Christ, you guys are cooking right now.
I also think it's good. I think it's good to have expectations, though. Like, I mean, there's some things that are always frustrating for us, but honestly, it's always a nice level of like reminding ourselves that we can do better, and we should, It's more the fact that like we just need time to do it, like you said. It's not that we can do anything someone our community really wants us to do for our game. It's just a matter of like, will they be willing to work with us to get to that point? You know, that's always the tricky part.
Can you guys
I'm
stop
kind of
being
amazed
so
at how fast we
likable?
moved anyways.
Can you relax on that? That's awesome, man. Very cool. And I'm glad that you have like such a healthy mentality towards it too. Please don't lose that, man. That's something that like when people are working
it's
in devs,
kind of
like,
obnoxious when you yeah, it is hard, but like some devs have this attitude where it's like, no, like we gotta like lower expectations and stuff, and like I get it. It's game dev feels impossible at times, so I'm very like compassionate to that, but at the same time, you just like, I don't know, like we should be better, right? Like
sure,
we are comparing ourselves to those great games.
I guess we're on the subject of hard subjects. This is one that I'm very personal to, and I've mentioned to you guys before in person, but it's something that I think that should be brought up like in a public manner. Mostly because I think everyone's voice needs to be heard on it. The subject of toxicity in like ally chat and all chat and all that fun stuff. I mean, what's your guys' thoughts on it right now? Because right now there is no chat in the game. I don't know if that's like a decision currently, or if it's just because they haven't been implemented. Where are we going with the whole talking to your teammates thing?
Yeah, that was a deliberate choice. 100%. Just because mainly for new players, it's so brutal when you have someone who's telling you you're dumb for not doing what the other, especially for a game like ours where like what's correct is not right. You know, like a lot of people in the Discord are like, man, people who go Sandpin on my team are awful, and it's like, wait, some of the best players on the leaderboard right now play only Sandpin. So
yeah.
And I guess like I'll let you guys finish your thought, because I'm gonna push back a little bit. So let me know when you guys are done on your thoughts on that.
No. The only thing I was just gonna say is that it's more just about giving space, I think, for new players. But I think where you're even open to it in a certain manner. But go on.
Yeah, I personally, my opinion is I hate it, and it's not your game. This is I think a game-wide thing, right? Like Marathon's not doing proximity chat because they're afraid of toxicity, and I feel like some of my favorite gaming moments. Nice, GG guys on the wins.
Let's go.
My favorite gaming moments is moments like this, where people are able to talk and like congratulate each other, or even like when someone defends my build in a match, right? When someone is being a toxic a-hole, and I'm just worried that we are losing those bonds that are created in gaming that makes them so special online, because the internet can be awful at times. And so I would really like a solution that meets in the middle. Maybe you have to say, hey, I'm down to be in chat or whatnot, because the worst thing in a MOBA, for me personally, is feeling alone. I hate not being able to talk to my teammates. I hate not knowing what's going through their brain. And if I'm stuck in a game for 30 to 40 minutes and I can't talk to anybody and I feel alone afterwards, I'm probably going to turn the game off instead of playing another one, right? So I just want to push back on that mentality and let it come from another spot, because like I think there is good. It's just I know that MOBAs get the whole toxic thing, but it's everywhere in gaming, you know?
I completely agree, actually. I mean, like in a sense that I always have felt a huge connection with, you know, even Warcraft 3, right? Where you're in the lobby, you're playing with people, you're making friends. All that stuff happened in the channels back then, in those chats that existed. So I do agree that like that social connection and bond is amazing.
Yeah.
And I do think we're both open to like having a opt-in chat. That's where things are like more technically a question, right?
Sure.
But for sure, I think that's real. Eric, go ahead.
I'd say I think the hardest thing is people the time I see people use chat the most is when they're angry.
Yeah. I get it.
And it's never like proactive or like trying to make the game better. It's always to like just shout at your teammates or your enemies, or to trash talk. I played a lot of competitive games.
Yeah, I get you.
I think it's only happened like 10% of the time. But the issue is like, can we make a system that allows for those moments of time of connection and like meeting someone who's a stranger and bonding over like a game and then continuing to like grow, right? Being able to grow a community is so important, and it's also really, really hard.
Yeah. Like I think I think I would argue here that because I worked at Heroes of the Storm from the very, very beginning of it when it was being built up, and having chat in the early stages kind of allowed us as community managers to try and like build a place where people can fun. And for a while, for 3 or 4 years, like Haas was like considered to be one of the most positive MOBAs for a while. And I'd like to think it's because we helped build that from the very start. And so I'm worried that way you guys are in early access right now, if we don't have the ability to interact and build a community now, when you're having your streamers and content creators coming in, you'll never get that world of like having a solid place for people to like interact, you know? So
Yeah.
That's why I'm like really passionate and worried about this.
There's an interesting, so we had this idea a long time ago of having this score called like an honor score.
Yeah.
Where there's another thing to, there's this another, like, it's instead of being your skill rating, it's your community engagement, or it's your, you know, how how are you relate, like how good of a player are you to other people.
Sure.
Where
Yeah.
you can get upvoted, you can downvoted, all this stuff. And the idea is that the score would be deeply tied to a lot of the social features, and it would also be tied to your end of match rewards, where the more honor you have, the more rewards you could get. I don't think I would call it a social credit score. It's more like, I think Dota. Dota has like a behavior score. Like a ton of games have these kind of under the hood mechanics
I think that was figured out
only punish.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say like these scores only like kind of punish people.
Yeah.
Versus like give you things. And so if we, instead of doing like the stick method, you do the carrot. And part of that could be being able to use chat, being able to, you know, use voice chat. There's some cool tech to be able to like integrate Discord more. Like there's a lot of options. It's just solving for, you know, when you first, you know, launch a game, you go into a match, you don't know what you're doing, and then someone just, you know, calls you a bunch of slurs and then says, uninstall. You're just gonna leave and never come back. And that's like every MOBA out there.
I should just say really quick, I actually didn't. Eric met Mitt playing Dota.
Yeah,
they literally found each other. Dota. It's crazy. So many of our
life friendships from playing MOBAs. It's just because we had a couple of good games together, and it just wound up working out. I mean, people get married in WoW, right? Like there is definitely positivity there, and we forget it so much. So
I agree.
It's true.
Yeah, I had one more question. If you guys want to do something a little bit on the harder side, real quick, and I think Jack actually said he wanted to have this question. So, the question was from a player named Saya in your Discord. This might be a hard-hitting question, but I feel like it needs to be said. Will Sirocco and the dev team behind it put the players, dev team, and the community first before most other things? They are usually concerns when a game like this surges in popularity, where dev teams are often focused on monetization, or the pro scene, or just both, but they don't value the people that are heart of the game, and what is making them. I guess I just want to be assured that whatever happens to Sirocco, it's made available to the people at large, and it won't go down any bad routes.
Yeah. I think it's a really good question, because even though, like you said, it's not like super specific, it gets at the vibe of where people have felt like they were a part of something becoming popular, and then it kind of turns on them.
Yeah.
I mean, Overwatch is a great example of that, right? Yeah, I mean, I think the key is that we don't just want to, I don't know, make even a popular MOBA and make our bag on it, right? We want to make a map editor and create a community for other people and stuff too. So at least for me, that's just something that's important, because I like playing the games in Warcraft 3 still, and I really like playing our game. So I don't think I would necessarily be happy if we never got to recreate that. Obviously that's like a kind of a big vision long term, but yeah, that's kind of what I would say. Eric, I don't know if you have any feelings about it too.
Yeah, I think my feelings is we got to take care of our internal dev team, because if we don't have a good dev team, we can't make a good game.
Facts. Yeah.
So I think that's the hardest part of this thing, is like, as leaders in this company, like we do have to prioritize our employees and like our team, because without them we can't keep making the game. Second is definitely the players and the community. I think we take a lot of feedback very personally and listen to a lot of people have to say.
I can vouch for that, by the way. I think Jack's heard multiple of my complaints about things, and he's like, yeah, I feel ya. Definitely, you guys have been great about that.
What's great is I think feedback is so wonderful. It's one of those things where I think a lot of players, including myself, you'll just kind of throw this stuff out there to like a dev team, and they just never listen, and then they put something in that you're just like, what? Where did that come from? And then your feedback over time gets more and more angry and frustrated, because you're not getting listened to. But what's wonderful is with our community, we have people come in. There's obviously something that, you know, is obviously they don't like. We talk with them, we see, what's going on, and we can kind of dive into like what's actually the real issue, or what's like something that could help alleviate that. And that's been really fun to actually dive in with people who are better at the game than I am, and like really talk through, things that we're missing, what could be better, and that stuff. So that's definitely, the players are second, and then obviously, everything else above that. Because if we don't have a dev team and we don't have players, we don't have a game.
Yeah,
so.
True. Out of curiosity right now, currently, do you have a good sense of what your guys' pipeline is for, like, if you do get feedback, when would someone see results of it if you agree with it? Because most games can be 6 to 8 months. Is it around there? Is it longer? Is it shorter? Things like that.
Interesting. It depends on what the feedback is.
Yeah,
Sometimes it can be a week. So a lot of things that people put in Discord about balance or concerns over this and that, I have just done yesterday, pretty much. A lot of the smaller number tunings, concerns around different things, and a lot of the stuff is I had to like aggregate it, look at some of our data from the back end, and then look at what can be done.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff can be fast, but then there's stuff that's like a bigger feature. So anything that's a little bit larger scale is usually going to be at least 3 months, because first you have to design it, you have to like get some tech specs on it, build it, test it, fix all the bugs, and then iterate on it.
Yeah.
So I think if we agree with something, it's probably 3 to 6 months, but I hate to say that because sometimes that's not true, and sometimes it's going to be like a month or a week.
Yeah, it sounds like you want to be quick and agile, but sometimes things take a while, and I think that's a perfectly fine way to put it,
Full-fledged features and things like that.
Yeah.
Take a bit of time.
When can I order boba in my boba game? I want that feature.
There you go.
Now we're cooking.
Uber Eats integration.
That's right. Oh, Jack's in trouble. Is he okay? He's out.
Greed is good.
He's probably dead. He's probably dead.
Greed is good, man. Okay, so anything else on that subject before I move on to the next one? Because the next one's kind of dear in my heart, and I'm ready to discuss it, but I want to make sure you guys get to say what you want to say. It's what this is all about right now.
Yeah, I would hate to commit to something and then not deliver it. I would rather just have something pop up and be like, we got this for you. I feel a lot of games commit to a roadmap, and then they get feedback, and then they have to change it, and then they have to apologize for not meeting the roadmap. And I just don't think as a studio you can have overarching goals and what you're moving towards and like big things you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
But then how you get there, I don't see a way that you can just like have very clear roadmap and not deviate, especially if you're getting feedback from your player base.
Sure.
Like, I don't know how you incorporate that.
It's definitely a weird tug of war for sure. And most of roadmaps usually come from like big corporations like coming together, and then they're just trying to put things out to settle some kind of argument or whatever. But it seems like you guys are just taking the honest approach. Like, we're doing what we can. Yeah. We enjoy our game. We're playing with our heart, and we'll do our best. Which, does that sound about apt for you all, or? Because that's kind of what I'm getting for vibes.
Absolutely. I also think it's like the challenge is like making sure people feel like they know that we're listening and we want to make those changes, but then at the same time being like, listen, I don't know when that's gonna be on the horizon, but like we hear you. Like, I want that as well. I think that's one of the more difficult things.
As a content creator, one thing that I thought you guys were doing really well, just really appreciate it, is like when someone puts out a video on your game, you guys are like celebrating it, saying thank you, saying like personal messages and whatnot. Like, that stuff goes a long way, and it makes me want to like speak great about you guys, and of course give you all the time in the world to do what you want to do. So personally, thank you for doing that kind of stuff. And I get a chance to see other content creators and what they're working on. Like, I miss that sense of community in games sometimes. Like, I come from the Halo 2 days or whatnot, so being able to see devs and content creators and players all being together and enjoying something instead of tearing it down has been pretty refreshing for me.
Yeah, I mean,
it's awesome.
We're just fans too. I mean, at the end of the day.
Oh my god, like absolutely. One of my favorite parts of making this game was like this part, getting to meet some of my like heroes that got me into games. Playing with Dendy was like a dream come true for me. I was like,
starts hooking in your game, and you're like,
freaking out.
whoa!
Oh my god, I was. Oh, it's so cool.
That's awesome. Very awesome. Okay, next subject for you guys. Talking about one player brought up, is there skill-based matchmaking currently in there? I know you guys talked about there's ranks currently happening for quick match. Like, how is matchmaking currently being applied for you guys in this early access? And then I have some questions about ranked later on.
Yeah. Right now, it currently works is everything is skill-based matchmaking. It's just that when people enter in, there's not a good way to funnel them right away.
Yeah.
But your rank badges do correlate to some number underneath the hood. You'll be able to see that number when you hit rank 50. The reason why we do that is because we don't want people to really focus on the number going up a few points and down a few points every time you play.
Sure.
But rather the overall, like, where you are as a skill bracket is actually a little bit more useful. Even though I guess people really love numbers.
Yeah. I'm part of that problem.
But, but how it works right now is the matchmaker, you'll enter it. It will take in, who you're going in with. It will try to put you in a game with someone who's very close to you in MMR, and then as the longer you stay in it, it will look for, people of wider and wider skills. Just because we don't have enough player base to really limit that. Sure. As we grow, we'll be able to make those times slower. Because nothing's worse than having an unbalanced game, but nothing's worse than not finding a game.
Yeah. Good point.
So that's one piece. But then after you find a match, it will then balance all 10 players to make the most evenly assorted team among those tickets. And then parties are counted higher. And then there's this bug that people have been running into where it's trying to find a server for you to go into. But sometimes that call can fail. And then it just defaults you to United States East for whatever reason.
Nice.
And so that's been kind of the biggest thing we've noticed technical wise, besides obviously the thing that happened this morning.
Well, early access, man. You've identified it. All good there. Okay, so skill-based matchmaking is in. Don't figure it out until you are score 50. That's what you said, right? And then it will start popping up for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, eventually we'll probably put it in a player profile a little bit more hidden.
Yeah.
So people who really want to know can go and look at it and see the number go up and down. I've just noticed in a lot of games, people really focus on, they lose one game and then they lose all hope because they lost 25 points.
Sure. It's definitely an unhealthy obsession.
It's a tricky balance too. I feel like in a certain way, if we had a separate queue for ranked would be one thing too. But because so many people are coming in for their first time, it's like people are playing the game right now in so many different manners, right?
Yeah.
Some people are going to these match rounds, ranked games, and they're thinking I need to grind and get better, and some are just what's going on? What's the game like? What are these mechanics?
Yeah, that's what
I enjoy the sampan.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just saying I enjoy the sampan, and people really like this show. They don't want to play they want to play other things.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Because you can only have one boat, right? You can't do 5 of the same boat. Once someone picks it, it's gone from everybody
outside
else.
of the sampan, but yeah.
Okay.
All ships basically you can only have one of on your team except the sampan. So that's kind of the interesting thing.
Oh, interesting.
It's the best.
I want to do some late game five-man sampan builds.
They're so good. That's the
boat that you're currently, right, Jack? The sampan right now?
I'm playing the sampan right now.
Okay.
And there's some honestly, we should do it Mitt and Eric at some point where we just all get the same shroud augment.
And you just win in 5 minutes. It's so funny.
Yeah, that'd be really funny. But yeah, there's cool stuff like that. The sampan's what's kind of special about it is that you can have as many on your team as you want. So it's kind of cool.
You think you'll have more boats like that in the future, or is that just this is a starter boat? We kind of landed on this.
I mean, it's such a from my perspective at least, it's such a great way to get introduced to the game.
Yeah,
it would be interesting down the road to have other starter ships that you could choose. But we haven't really gotten that far yet.
Sure.
Personally, I mean, Eric, I don't know if you have any opinions.
I go back and forth with it a lot. The simplicity of the sampan makes it really easy to jump in, and it's kind of like a pistol round in CS:GO where everyone has the same footing, and you just spend a little bit different, and it kind of controls the pace. I think there's a lot of opportunity around like mixing up the feel of the start of the game with captains and having the captain's choice play a little bit more into the start versus it being like something that happens like later on with just loom coils. So I think that variance I want to do with captains versus with ships, but I'm not opposed to having different ships.
It sounds like a simple solution to this whole problem is just to make an ARAM mode and let it be like sometimes there's 5 of the same boat. Good luck, guys. Things like that, you know? Which honestly, like, a lot of people like. I don't know if you guys like play Heroes of the Storm, but that's one thing that people do play.
That's the only thing I play in Heroes of the Storm.
Oh, yeah, they play that mode, and sometimes I think there's like a 5% chance or something that everyone's the
5-man
same boat,
Illidan.
and people love those little stories, you know? You have to, of course, make sure it's small enough where it's happening all the time, because people do get annoyed eventually, but the small, rare occurrence, people love, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
For sure.
there is an interesting moment where like we were talking about ships, right? Or sorry, different maps. And that could be something there where there's different modifiers applied to a map. Like this map, you can have this many ships. So then the game becomes a lot more about adapting and like being creative with the stuff you get at the start of the match versus having a predetermined way to play the game.
Oh, that's a good point. We haven't discussed at all for people that may be watching this video later on. I know we're like super long into it now, but you know, if you're here, you're here. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, etc. You currently have a system set up where when you go to buy a boat, I don't know, Jack, when you ever get a chance, if you can just hit the B button for a second, you have a certain amount of boats that are offered to you here, and this changes every single game, and they'll have cheaper boats that will be different play styles, and that kind of changes the lobby in general. Can you guys talk about that a little bit, and like what your goals are for it? Is there evolution coming in the future? And, you know, things like that.
Yeah, I think it started with, so,
it's a pretty new feature for us, actually.
It's actually really new.
Once you pointed it out to me, I love it, by the way. Like, I hope it doesn't change. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, we're gonna put better UI in there soon,
Yeah.
just to help with knowing like how things unlock.
Mm-hmm.
But originally, what it was is that I made ships for each tier. And I bet if someone studied the ships long enough, they could figure out which were the tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s, tier 4s, based on some of their designs. But what it was really, what inspired us to like try this is every game started to kind of feel the same because people would just do the same order of ships every time. Because they found their thing they liked, they went from A to B to C.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would switch up based on who their opponent was. But if their opponent didn't do anything that pushed them to, you know, change up their playstyle or their strategy, they wouldn't do that. And so what we found was that we would put in we try this randomized things, and what we found is that actually a lot of people just play the ships built in like tier 1 and tier 2 because they came up more and they understood them more and they enjoyed them more just because they played them more. And so our later ships weren't as iterated on, but as soon as we had the randomized thing in there, all of a sudden the strategies of what people were going to changed, the different feedbacks for boats changed, and then every game felt really different in a good way. I think the first couple of times we played it felt awkward, and then because we were so used to the other one, it's like, where's my lurker? It's tier 1. I need my lurker. But then it started really adapting where it's more focused on, you know, you open up the shop and then you can think about, all right, what's my strategy for this game?
Yeah.
And then also, what do I think the enemies are going to do? And then what can I mix it up? Because I think so often these games, the creativity part of it, of like figuring out a strategy, and then during the game you have some tactics to adapt to what your opponents are doing, is so fascinating and so interesting that's what gives these games like hundreds of hours of playability, in my opinion. And so like highlighting that is something we really want to work on.
Just for clarification's sake, when you have this boat that's randomized, is it the same for both teams, or they have potentially different boats that are cheaper? Like, can there be a mirror matchup, or is there?
It's all the same.
Okay. Cool.
It's so like the game starts.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure it was
order.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing for it to be that
both.
way, because then you know what your opponents can go for, and you're not surprised, or they get like an OP boat or something if there is an OP boat in the future, things like that.
Well, the beautiful thing is, if there's an OP boat, both teams have access to it.
Yeah, with this system, right? Yeah, that's cool.
The sampan.
Yeah,
Sampan. We got sampan truthers out here.
It does everything.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else on top of that before I wanted to move back to the ranked discussion because
yeah, you asked what we're thinking about for that in the future.
Yeah.
And one of the things is maybe we would do weighted. So some ships are weighted later on and some ships are weighted earlier.
Oh,
just
cool.
so that it's not like it's not so often that, you know, there's some ships that are pretty team focused, like the Nori or like the Horizon, which is like early they're cool, but sometimes it can be a little too oppressive. But that's not really.
Or even like we were talking about maps earlier. I always thought it'd be kind of interesting is like maybe one map has a set tier list and then one is random.
Oh, that's cool.
That's kind of interesting idea.
You could always, there's a system in Hearthstone Battlegrounds where like there's if there is a card, for instance, not used that often or whatever, it will get put into the pool a little bit earlier as like a free item, so more of it gets played. So like if there's a boat that isn't getting picked as much, you can make it cheaper and for a couple of rounds and whatnot, gets you more data. It mixes the games up a little bit as well. They also add like health things, but you don't need that for this. But there's a lot of like weird things you can do with that just to make it interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the big, ultimately having a way to incentivize creative play, I think kind of gets at, I think ideally you have players that can leverage their flexibility to an advantage.
Yeah.
And then also there's certain players that are just going to be monsters at certain things, you know? Let's see if I can push this guy.
Oh, close fight.
Okay. Nice. That's a sick tornado.
That tornado was hitting everybody.
You know it.
All right.
I think we need a battle.
I was gonna ask a question, but you guys are in a battle. I am so focused on this right now. Two of you are so low. HP getting down there. Oh no, the red's coming in. Jack's trying to save. Can Jack get out? He does have a right click. Oh, the snipe! I thought you were gonna try to escape, but he finds a kill. Jack in the corner, holding the angles, moving forward. Was he right about the
Fun
sandbag?
fact about Jack, yeah, he can't die, by the way.
He's got a slow too. The fight is being turned around. No way you get this. No way you get this. He got one.
Let's go. We're gaming. We're gaming.
One more snipe
Hit him with
coming
any
out.
flank. There it is. The Pizza Hut play of the game, boys. That's what
right.
I'm talking about.
Dang, dude. Let's get a pepperoni up in here.
100%.
Stuffed crust, baby.
Dang, Jack. My God, are your nipples hard? That was insane.
A little bit. I'm not gonna
lie. Okay.
That's a secret.
On to the ranked discussion. Where are your guys' head currently when it does come to ranked? Mostly in regards to, are you wanting a separate playlist eventually for try-hard sweaties like me that want to grind ranked all day? And then two, are you thinking about making it a solo queue, duo queue kind of experience? Or are you trying to lean towards team? Or are you guys not even thinking about this stuff yet because it's too early and I should shut up?
I think the biggest thing is player size. It's really dependent.
Totally. Get that.
With a limited player size, you really can't separate them. Because then your queue times are just going to be really long. I think there's systems that you can do where you can combine the two, but you can help split them up over time.
Sure.
And I think that's probably the most ideal, is like a system that works for the casuals and it pushes the people who are grinders up and out and then into like their own kind of pool, even though it's technically the same pool. I think that would be the most ideal. I think splitting up parties, I think is hard.
Yeah.
It really depends on how important is it in our game.
I will tell you, as someone that enjoys the rank grind or whatnot, if we don't find and this is me just like talking about like alley chat, proximity chat, all that stuff. if I don't have that and I am forced to play against like a 3 or 5 stack, it feels really bad if I'm playing with like other solo queuers and whatnot, because I can't even talk to my teammates, but they're definitely on Discord, so I feel at a major disadvantage. So like that's why solo queue duo queue I think really works in a lot of ranked MOBAs, and why a lot of content creators grind it by themselves, because it feels more fair and then it gets a good competitive environment. But
it's
go ahead.
It's a really important thing of if it being fair versus it the
Feeling
numbers
fair.
behind it, do parties actually win more than solo queues, or does it just feel awful because when you're playing with your friend, like every game feels better when you're playing with your friend,
Totally.
but also there's a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
There's an interesting thing where did you ever play Apex?
A little bit, yeah.
So they have a pretty good ping system where when I'm playing with my friends, I don't actually talk to them about what we're doing. I just ping on things, and then we just talk about random stuff elsewhere, because using my words is slower than just clicking something.
Sure.
I don't think it completely works for MOBAs, but I do think our current system could be made into one that you can communicate a lot more effectively with better pings and voice lines and chat wheel.
Yeah.
That I just don't think you can do with typing. I think typing is probably the worst method to communicate in a game that you have to have your hands actively doing stuff.
Yeah.
It's good for strategizing, so maybe a pre and a post lobby. But yeah, communication is the number one key of Jack's going. Can we allow these different types of queuing? And I think what's going to happen is how we develop rank is going to be kind of based on where our game kind of heads with our community, and then what kind of makes sense.
Cool. I mean, it sounds like you guys are thinking about it. You seem to be having all the angles covered, and that's all I wanted to bring up here. So glad you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
I guess moving on to the next discussion, actually, it's really interesting that I'm watching this right now. There's an ability on this boat that it looks like you can move forward and teleport someone back, which kind of leads into a discussion that came out of your Discord about CC, basically. And it was mostly focused on grappling hooks and being able to engage. And the question was, hey, is this starting to become a potential issue in this game? And I think that kind of builds into balance, which we talked about earlier, but do you think there's too much CC, too much dragging that's currently happening right now? Or does it feel right? Because in this game, there are a lot of long cooldowns, so you got to really be effective if you're going to do it.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? Because there's always a balance, right? Being the lurker and hooking someone feels amazing.
Sure. Being
on the receiving end is sometimes not so much.
Yeah.
So there's tons of effects in the game that can feel good if you're the one executing them, and can kind of feel bad if you're on the receiving end, but it also feels good if you get out of it. So I do think CC as a whole is probably one of the harder things to fine tune.
Yeah.
Because if it's not enough, you as the person applying it feels like it does nothing. And if it's too much, it's the person on the other end that feels like they have no counter. They have nothing. They're done. They can't do anything. In our game, there's a lot of ways to counterplay a lot of these CCs and elements. There's a lot of purge, but I think a lot of those things are kind of more under the hood of being able to see it. I think new ships in the future will probably not focus so much on these big CCs or drags or hooks or displacement stuff. Will be a little bit more finely tuned to different mechanics. Sure. I do think it's probably a little over the top right now, but most of the time what's interesting is I see a Horizon come in, they'll grab a bunch of people, and then often people get out of it.
Yeah.
Which is not true for other games. Not even in the genre. It's most of the time, if you get pushed out of position, you just die instantly.
Yeah, you're getting picked.
Yeah. Where in our game that doesn't happen often, I think it is a little jarring to get pushed all over the place.
Yeah, first time you're always like, what's going on? But that's the thing in MOBA is the moment you learn by dying, right? Most of the time you get picked off and you're like, oh, I shouldn't do that again. And you might be frustrated in the moment, but I think CC is one of those things that as people get better at a game, they're able to predict it a little bit better. And sure, there will be moments, but the moments definitely go down a lot.
Yeah, but I do agree with the community that I think it's a lot of some of it is a little some of it's too long or too intense.
Sure.
It's just like making that balance.
And that's always the tricky thing. Like even the horizon here by itself, if I pull someone, even if it's really far, I pretty much need to do it to a tower if I want to get a solo kill. Otherwise, I need setup with my team.
Sure.
So that's kind of a feature of battleships too. I would say it was always something that we thought made it kind of unique was the kind of longer cooldowns and more impact on abilities though, because you could really have these game-changing wombo combos and stuff.
Very team-oriented.
I think it also makes in talking of team, like I feel like ships that can give back in terms of cooldown, like the ship I'm using, I actually lower my teammates' cooldowns, so you know, now you can kind of combat it the long cooldown times a little bit, but you know, in a game where there's long cooldowns, this feels really valuable. So there's another like role to fulfill there if you want to.
Ooh, and as we're actually getting towards the end of this game and probably the end of our night, we had a question from Zexus in chat. In most games, the players can pick what enemy unit to attack them within range, but in Sirocco, the auto attack is full auto. What was the reason for that choice? Yeah, that's something that like I've kind of gotten used to, and it was a shock when I first played it. But some people probably don't even know that. Yeah, it's all positionally based, and your auto attacks come out automatically. You're not right-clicking, right? What was the idea behind that?
So that goes all the way back from the original Warcraft 3 mod, and it's a really cool innovation. It, like you said, I think it's hard when people haven't experienced it before because it's so like last hitting and right clicking is such a huge part of Dota and League. But the kind of interesting emergent quality of that mechanic is the fact that if you are shooting all your weapons randomly at whatever targets are in range, suddenly choosing a certain weapon for a certain build becomes really important, right? So I was playing the Horizon, I was using close range weapons and trying to like run up on people, and then I had all these special effects on my weapons that gave me movement speed and slowed enemies so I could get pulls easier, but I could easily swap those out for other things. And the auto firing is really about how do you manipulate your positioning. So instead of being so focused on like, oh, I'm going to right click at the perfect timing, our game's really all about like, how do I position my ship in the right place on my team to then also tank the damage and share the load of all the weapons of my opponents. So it's like both how can I maximize the effectiveness of my own weapons as well as like effectiveness of all the health of my team, which makes it kind of team oriented at its core, you know? It's really a lot more okay to be around your team in our game over a game like Dota or League because of that too.
Sure.
And I think like if you look at some of the team fights that happen in that game, they're super rich and kind of long and drawn out in a really interesting way, I think, because of that auto fire, right? Because all that damage shared. And it's not just like pick one off, pick one off, pick one off, pick one off. It's more of like, how do I maximize the effectiveness of all the abilities at once, you know?
Oh, awesome, man. Anything else to add on top of that, guys? I think someone was about to talk there.
What I'd say about the auto firing is, I think once you get past not being able to target someone specifically in a group of enemies, it allows you to realize that you don't need to be constantly clicking on top of each other. And instead, you can think about the game as a whole, where you can think about where's my abilities, where are my teammates. It gives you time to actually look at the mini map to like strategize, and it doesn't have a like APM requirement for people coming in and playing. It's also on the flip side, I think, because every mechanic has how you use it and then how does your opponent respond to it. And I think that's like really important to think about both sides. Auto firing, in other MOBAs where you can just like click on people, being next to your ally isn't necessarily useful because they can just target the person they want to target. And it really comes down to, are they going to misclick or are they going to misplay by, messing up their buttons or hotkeys or, whatever can happen.
Sure,
but in our game, if I see my friend getting attacked, I go next to them. I actively take damage and share with them. I'm saving them just by being near them. So me being near you is actually a benefit to you, which is not the case in other games. Actually, it's not. Actually, in other modes, I'd say it's a detriment to just follow around someone.
Sure.
And as a new player who've never had these games, your first intuition is just to follow someone else.
Yeah, hang out with them.
And every time I
Chill with the homies.
Yeah, you want to hang out. You want to be near people. You want to like, you know what you're doing.
We're
so
social creatures. We're humans. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's great is that you're being useful just by literally just being near someone else. You are now a useful contributing member of your team. Even like the worst person, they're like 0 and 20. Them being on the map is still taking damage away from you, and is still taking damage away from your minions, and they're contributing. That you cannot say that's true for other games.
Interesting point. Awesome. Yeah, I could definitely vibe with that. And I like that you guys are like kind of challenging things a little bit and making sure it's different enough, but also familiar for MOBA players, so we can have things to like try to like master in this game. I don't know. I think you guys are really cooking up something special here, and I just want to thank you guys for coming out and spending time with me on my stream, and give me some information about the game, and give me a lot of information to think about as well, and you know, changing my mind on a couple of things too. Before I let you guys go, though, do you want to shout anything? Where can people wishlist this game? What can we do to help you guys be better?
Just pop in early access, play some games. That's always what we're looking for.
Heck yeah.
Give us lots of good feedback. We're just trying to make our game better and get more players in here. And thank you so much. You've been awesome. You've been with us for
absolutely.
Thank you.
Actually.
And if I'm ever talking smack on my stream, because I am a loud person and I have opinions, always feel free to reach out and tell me to shut up. I have ideas and thoughts just like anyone else, but I also can like know when I'm like going too far, right? Like I've been doing these for years, so
honestly, like we're so used to it too.
Cool.
I talk that way.
Awesome.
I'll just filter it for Eric because I think he's the one who needs to not hear it the most, probably.
Eric, you're doing a great job, man. Always remember that.
Every number is me. So.
If we find something broken, we blame Eric. All right, everyone, start getting in there.
Yeah, that's right.
You just throw that in the review.
Yeah, you mentioned feedback, by the way. What's the best place to get you guys feedback? Is it your Discord? Right, I can put a link in that on the YouTube channel as well. Yeah.
Yeah, pop in the Discord. We have a suggestions channel as well as a feedback forum. That's really awesome. And another thing, if you like our game, make sure to review it. That really helps.
Okay, we'll get some reviews in there. I will do that later as well, because I do like it, and I'm looking forward to the future. All right, guys, anything else before I say goodbye?
All good on my end.
All right, thank you guys. Good. Appreciate you all so much.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Dude, that was awesome.